Etty, can you make the image a little bit bigger, of the text?
I close this?
Yeah, we're
No,
gonna.
you should be able to make it like a little bit larger, I think.
Yeah, you're just, this screen is blocking. I have to move it. Here, see? Here's what's the name? Is that better?
Oh, yeah. Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Perfect.
Bigger?
That's plenty. Perfect.
Okay, so now if you need, you can move them.
What?
But if you need to make it bigger, you have to move them more.
So it's over there.
Yeah, see the minus?
And I'll be able to read, to
They
go
can hear me
across,
now too.
Why do you want to go across?
because, oh, you mean I have the whole thing?
We have the full screen width.
Okay, we're in good shape.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Etty.
Yeah. What?
Okay, I think we're in business. Okay, good evening, everyone. This is a very exciting topic because it's really fascinating. I could probably give about 4 or 5 shiurim on this after doing some research, but I'm going to limit it this year to tonight. Next week, maybe we'll talk about the Zoom bar mitzvahs, doing Zoom kriyas. But this week, the topic is, what do you do with a missed kriya Torah? I have been asked this question the last few weeks more than any other question. Everyone wants to know what's going to be when we return to the shul, Mirz Hashem, Bekarov, what are we going to do with all the parshas that we missed? It's already, the last parsha we heard was Kisisa. Now it's 2 months later. What are we going to do to make up, or do we make up the parshas? So this is a very, very big topic. And I saw today about 7 or 8 different tshuvas from contemporary poskim, Rav Asher Weiss, Rav Hershel Schachter, Eretz Chemda has a long tshuva. The Rav Avad Yosef's son has a tshuva. And there's not uniformity of opinion, but I'll share with you what the issues are, and I'll try to make it as clear as possible. The starting point, there's no Gemara that discusses what happens if you miss a parsha. Obviously it's things that it happens, but there's no Gemara that discusses it. The starting point is in a sefer called Or Zerua, and I wrote down so I shouldn't forget. The Or Zerua was written by Rav Yitzchak ber Rav Moshe from Vienna. His abbreviations for his name is the Riaz. In the back of the Gemara and the Rif on the side, there's the Riaz. It's the Or Zerua. He was born in 1180, died 1250. He was like in the middle of the period of the Rishonim. The Rishonim lasted from 1100 to 1480, like Rabbeinu Tam was the beginning of the Rishonim. He was about 100 years after Rabbeinu Tam, and his famous work, and he was the Rebbe of the Rami Rutenberg, who was very famous. Rami Rutenberg was the Rebbe of the Rosh. The Rosh was the father of the Tur, and the Shulchan Aruch, Beis Yosef wrote a Shulchan Aruch based on the Tur. So the Or Zerua, first, before we start what he says, I shared this with the group about 4 months ago, but I'm so moved by it that I'm going to share it again. I hope you don't mind if you remember. He explains, why did he call the Sefer Or Zerua? So he says, Karasi Zachibar Ani HaMechaber Yitzchak B'Rav Moshe. Why, if my name's Yitzchak and the son of Moshe, why did I call it Or Zerua? Because of great affection. Shematzasi B'Zeh HaMikra Or Zerua L'Atzadik L'Yishu Simcha. The pasuk, the famous pasuk that we all know, Or Zerua L'Atzadik L'Yishu Simcha. It's Sofei Tevos Rebbe Akiva. If you look at the last letters, it's bold for you to see. Reish is Rebbe, Ayin, Kuf, Yud, Beis, Hey, Akiva. And it's not, you don't have to scramble the letters. It's right in order. Reish b'milu yihani Rebbe. The letter Reish, if you spell it out, it means the head. So it's the same as a Rebbe, because Rebbe Akiva was the head of the Jewish community. And then Shin, Beis, Al, okay, but Atbash, it also works out. Okay, and he says, why is he so excited about this? Because Mikashi Shlichta Rabbi Akiva Behei, V'lo Ba'alef. There's a big machlokas. Are you supposed to write Rabbi Akiva with a hey at the end or an alef at the end? Either way, you could pronounce it Akiva. And there's no, you can't look it up in Chumash because they're in Tanakh. There's no Akiva in Tanakh that I know of. So and it makes a difference as far as the get. The get has to have the proper spelling, ksuba also, but it's more critical for get. So he found the remez in this pasuk because Orza, he says it's dramatic that Rabbi Akiva's name is spelled out in the pasuk, and he says it shows the Ruach HaKodesh of the Torah. He says Ashrecha Rabbi Akiva kosafta David HaMelech ben Nevuah b'Sifro, that David HaMelech wrote this pasuk Orza Ruach HaTzadik, and David HaMelech was through Nevuah. It was a reflection on Rabbi Akiva. Then he quotes the famous Gemara that the Kadosh Baruch Hu showed Moshe Rabbeinu Rabbi Akiva, and Moshe Rabbeinu Rabbi Akiva was making sarim for the Osios, crowns for the Osios. So it's for Rabbi Akiva, the Osios were very important. So here you have with the Aleph Beis letters, Rabbi Akiva. Okay, so now the Or Zarua is just an aside. Here he tells a story. Ma'aseh bekulanya be'echad shekilu b'Shabbos haroy likros Parshas Emor Elokonim. He was given the honor of reading Parshas Emor. The Ikev Tefillah, and for some reason he delayed davening. He must have been a big procrastinator. He waited and he waited, and then before you know it, it was nighttime. Shabbos Haba, so now the congregation missed Parshas Emor. So the next week, Siva Rabbi Lazar Shimon Haskell Parshas Emor Alakonim Likrosa. Began Bahar Sinai. Haruli Likrosa Shabbos. So this Rabbi Lazar Shimon said, read both Parshas. Read Parshas Emor as a makeup, and read Parshas Bahar as the primary Parsha. Shelo Ledale Pam Achas Perik Echad or Parsha Echad Min HaTorah, and you shouldn't skip even one Parsha from the Torah. Ki Lefi Ki Mimimos Moshe Rabbeinu Niskan Likros HaTorah BeParsha Yosef. In the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Kriyas HaTorah was instituted. Ulashlim B'chol Shana, and you were supposed to finish the Torah every year. In order that the Jewish people should know the mitzvahs. There happens to be another minhag to read the Torah in 3 years. That's the triennial cycle. My father, Olav Hashem, was a super expert on that topic. But either way, there was a mitzvah to finish the Torah, either 1 year or 3 years. There's a principle in the Gemara of Avos Mano Bata Karbanon. If you miss the chance to bring the carbon, you can't bring it. You can't bring a carbon for Pesach in the middle of the year. So maybe you'll say that you missed it. You were supposed to learn Parshas Emor last week, and now it's too late. So he says, you don't say that. There's no fixed Parsha for any Shabbos. You're supposed to read the Parshas in order. And as we're saying is, this is going to be the fundamental question. Chazal instituted that you should read the Parshas in order, according in the Seder. And they didn't allow, they wanted you to read the whole Torah once a year. But they didn't let every person wake up Shabbos morning and say, okay, this week I'm going to read Vayelech. Next week I'm going to read Parshas Bereishis. They made it in order, and they made it that it's consistent. All of Klal Yisrael around the world, except for in Eretz Yisrael when they have 1 day, we have 2 days. But otherwise, basically, everybody in the world this coming week is going to read Parshas Bamidbar. But I don't know, whatever the Hebrew calendar date is, it's going to be the end of Iyar. The whole world is going to read Parshas Bamidbar. So the question is the takana that Chazal made, did they say that you're supposed to read Parshas, but they set it up that according to the calendar, the Parsha for this week is Bamidbar. That's the Parsha. And the Parsha for last week was Bahar B'Chukosai. And therefore, if you didn't read it last week, it's too late. You can't read it. It was last week's Parsha. You can't read last week's Parsha this week. So or do you say that there's no intrinsic connection between the Shabbos and the Parsha? We read Parshas Bamidbar because that's what we're up to. But it's not. There's no takana that this Shabbos you have to read Bamidbar. The Hasidic Svarim say that there's always a connection between the Parsha and what's going on in the world. I quoted it a number of times. So there's something special about the Parsha. If you want to understand current events, you have to learn the Parsha. Okay, those are mystical things. But the question is, what was the nation of Takana? So he says there is no connection between the Shabbos and the Parsha. El Kikenis Diru Aparshas. V'rayu, I mean, he brings a raya. Shim Yom Yantiv B'Shabbos. If Yantiv comes out on Shabbos, V'doch in a Parsha Shos Shabbos, and Parsha Yantiv, and you don't read for Shabbos, you read the Yantiv Parsha. Ago Miyad B'Shabbos Has Muchul Yantiv Chozer Makom Shepasach. So the next week you read the parsha that you missed on Yantiv. Well, I mean it all v'nitches titcha also. The afilu teva. What?
What about the Gemara in Masechta Megillah that says that Chachamim tikner sheyikar brachos ukolos of Mintaras Kahanim ukodim atzeres and brachos ukolos from Mishnah Torah before Rosh Hashanah. So the Gemara says specifically that before Shavuos, and Tosa says that we don't read Brachos HaKolos. Instead, they pushed it to Bamidbar because they didn't want the people to be too upset. But it's clear from Chazal that there is a tie-in between Brachos HaKolos and Bahar B'Chukosai and Shavuos.
You know, my father, Shalom, there was a Rav that moved to Forest Hills. He was a Rav in Memphis, Rav Natalovich, Rav Benzion Natalovich, that's all. He was a Goin. He was Bucky and Bavli and Yushalmi and everything there was. He knew everything by heart. And he used to write in Apartis every month. He published in Apartis. So he used to come to my father's shir, I guess maybe to be mechaber my father. My father said when he would walk into the shir, he scared him to death because he used to ask him kashas from a Yushalmi in Hayriyas. And my father, it was a bit too much for him. So when Josh Raps comes, you gotta be puts me on my toes. Josh, you have such a broad base of knowledge. But I think you're asking a good question. But the answer is, I believe, is that even though it's true, they wanted it to be read in the season, but it's not tied to a calendar date. It's not tied. If this coming Shabbos, whatever the date of the Shabbos is, it's going to be Chaf. This Shabbos is going to be Chaf Tes Iyar. They didn't tie the parsha to Chaf Tes Iyar. It's true, they arranged it that the parshas should fall out in certain times of the year, and certain parshas are supposed to come before a certain Yom Tovim, but it's still not connected to the date of the year. That's what he says. So therefore, if you miss the parsha, you still have the opportunity to make up the parsha the next week. That's what the Arzurua says. Comes along a sefer by so. In terms of our question, whether or not we could make up the missing parshas that we didn't hear, it would seem from the Arzurua, it would seem that we could, because it's the Arzurua says you can make up missing parshas, and in fact, the Arzurua's psak is recorded in the Shulchan Aruch here. The Shulchan Aruch says it's actually the Ramah brings the Arzurua. The Mechaber doesn't bring it. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't bring it, but the Ramah says. In Bittul Shabbos Achas Kriyas a Parsha B'Tzibur, if you miss the Parsha in Shul, Shabbos Haba Karanos a Parsha in Parsha Shiachos also Shabbos. The following week you read two Parshas. You read the Parsha from last week that you missed, and the Parsha that belongs to that Shabbos. Who's he quoting it from? Or Zerua. That's just from the Or Zerua. So,
Rabbi, that's a good position if you miss one. But since he says you need to be in order, it would seem to me you'd have to lane a few months worth of laning before you'd get to current.
That is an excellent question. Give me 1 second. I've got to unplug my phone.
Okay.
I think we'd have to make up around 11 Parshiyos now, or something like that.
As of now.
Yeah, as of now, exactly.
That takes care of that. Okay, so that's a very, very good point. That's Bob Lancy here, another Talmud Chacham. So your point is made by a savior called the Shaus Jews Maram Mintz. Maram Mintz was Ramosha Mintz. He lived in Germany and in Poland. He was a Rav. He lived from 1450 to 1480. So he was a little bit, maybe about 150 years after, or 200 years after the Or Zerua. and he's going to quote the Or Zarua, and his sefer was not printed in the time of when the Rav Yosef Cairo wrote the Shulchan Aruch, and then the Ramah wrote the Hagos on the Shulchan Aruch, Rav Moshe Isserlish. This sefer of Or Zarua was not yet in print, because it first was printed in 1670. The Shulchan Aruch was printed, was written sometime in the 16th century. So this was already in the 17th century, it was published, but he preceded the Rabbi Yosef, Cairo, and Rav Moshe Isserlish, and he would still, falls into the period of right at the very end of the period of Rishonim. So here he tells another story, and you'll notice that this sounds familiar, the second story. Mashish, unfortunately, Mashish Alta Maisishir Kila Kadisha Vermish. What's vermish in English? Worms. What was the three famous communities? Worms, Speiser,
Fire.
Vermeiser, Spires. And what was the third one?
Magensa.
Magensa. Rashi Teva Shum, Magensa. So B'Shabbos Parshas HaChodesh Shehiba Yaakov Pekudei Chubarim Likros Yachad. It was Parshas Yaakov Pekudei, and they were supposed to read both Parshas. V'Nikru Shisha Garich Dina. Everything was nice and calm. They called up 6 aliyahs. Ukisha Chazan Karesh V'La Hashem Sefer Nafal Kagar Bein Shnei Gari. There was a big fight between two people. Why was there a big fight? He doesn't say, but probably they were fighting over whoever gets Shvi gets to be up there when they say Chazak, Chazak, for this Chazak, and everybody stands up. And maybe the person thought that if he gets Shvi, it'll appear as if they're standing up for him. Who knows? But they had a big fight. Two people wanted the covet. So what happened? The Sefer Torah was just sitting there. 2 hours they couldn't settle the fight. Unbelievable. You'll see that the problems of people fighting go back. This was written 700 years ago. So look, that's how. I mean, we know it goes back to the time of Korach also, and the Shvatim. So what did everybody do? It's a funny story. They all left. They picked themselves up. They weren't going to hang around. So they took a Sefer Torah from the Aron to be able to finish reading the Parsha. They went to what's the base HaKnesset Shel Bachurim?
Youth Minion.
The teen minion,
yeah.
The teen minion, yeah, for the young kids. Shekarim Tzumerish. I don't know what Tzumerish is in German or Polish. Sham Karosh, that was the name of the minion. Sham Karosh Shvi, Vishlim Hasidra Kisikunim. So they read the last aliyah in the teen minion. But and he says now Atem Mechulakim Eich Likro B'Shabbos Achakach. So that's a big fight. Besides the fight between these two guys who wanted Achron or Shvi, now there's another fight. What should we do the following week? B'Shabbos Shel Vayikra. Yesh Mikem Shadaitim Lo to Likros B'Shabbos Abba Parsha Yaakov Pekudei in Vayikra. Some say that we have to read the Yaakov Pekudei with Vayikra. Why? Why should they have to read it? They already were Yotzei. The end of the most of the minion left, and they went into the teen minion and they finished the Parsha. So why would they have to read it? Even though they finished the Parsha, but it wasn't with the same Sefer Torah, and it wasn't in the same shul. So maybe you can't connect the two lanings. And furthermore, I'm skipping so we can get through this evening. And also maybe it's a hefsek, because normally we measure a hefsek. If it takes enough time to finish the whole thing, it's considered a hefsek. So here, there was enough time to read the whole parsha in 2 hours. So maybe it's a hefsek, and therefore you can't connect the two together. So the Maram Min says nearly Dein Likus B'Shabbos Abba V'Yaakov Pekudei. He says you should not read V'Yaakov Pekudei. Why? Rak Maskal. Then I forgot to read that. That was the shayla thought that you have to read it over again, and the other person thought that you don't have to read it over again. Okay, so he says nearly daily because of Shabbos above Yaakov Kudi rak masl sidu the shvud dahu vayikra. He should start from vayikra. Mekama time for a few reasons. First he says there's no such thing as a hefsek. Doesn't matter that they paused for 2 hours in between. There's no such a law. There's a halacha of hefsek by davening, but by kriyas Torah it doesn't matter. And then it explains why. I trimmed the this is not the whole tshuva, I just trimmed it. And the person that argued that you can't connect the end of the parsha to the rest of the parsha because they laid it in the teen minion to a different room. Amina, hi Mike. What difference does it make? This is an expression in the Gemara in Sanhedrin. Not clear what it means. Rashi says it doesn't mean anything. It's just like they use it as mumbo jumbo. So the chiluk biluk, it rhymes. So what's the difference? Chiluk biluk. Who said that if you lay in a different place, if you lay in one half of the parsha in one room, another half another room, who said that's a hefsek? He doesn't agree. And now the Rami Mintz has a whole different approach. He says, I'll tell you, I feel and we'll see must have a basic neshit tzurmish, even if the group did not leave, instead of leaving and going to the teen minyan, if they would have gone home, so they went to finish the parsha of Pekudei, you can't, this was I think Bob's issue. You can't read 3 Parshiyos in the coming Shabbos because if we treat Vayakol Pekudei as one entity, and since they weren't Yotzei the end of Pekudei, so they would have to read Vayakol Pekudei together. So you can't read Vayakol Pekudei in Vayikra. Why not? What does that stand for?
Sefer HaZeruah.
Very good. Sefer HaZeruah. The source of this halacha, that if you miss the parsha, you have to read over again, is in the HaZeruah. Maislei Aguda. The Aguda is another Rishon who quotes that. Parshiyos Hakare. V'zelo Shalom HaZeruah. In Bitlu b'Shabbos HaTamid Lo Kara Parsha. The HaZeruah says that if they didn't read the parsha of the Tamid, what's the parsha of Tamid? Why does he call it Parshas Tamid? He's talking about what parsha is Tamid in?
Pinchas.
Not what?
Just saying that the regular parsha, he means.
It's in Parshas Amor.
Amor also is.
What?
It's in Amor also.
It's in Amor also. So that's why
When you read Pinchas.
That was the story with the Orzerua, they forgot, the guy didn't get around to reading Amor. So he says
it's in Tetzaveh also.
Okay, good. All right. I can't start up with anybody here.
Okay.
I'll say, it says, Yikru b'Shabbos haba shnei sijus. The Orzerua says that if you didn't read Amor, then the next week you should read 2 parshas. Avalo kasav in bittul gimel daled shabas yikru also sijus b'Shabbos echad. He didn't say that if you missed a few parshas, you should read all those parshas. And he says, the reason why you could read 2 parshas came in the There are cases when you have parshas mechubarim, when you have Vayakol Pekudei, you read 2 parshas. So since there's such a thing as 2 parshas, so you could do a makeup with 2 parshas. Avo in this battle beisha basos ain't karim shabbos haba gimel sijus. But if it would be 2 weeks, so you'd have to read 3 parshas. So that's why the Orzerua doesn't say if there was a few weeks. He just says if there's 1 week. If there's one, because as he says. Well,
are we assuming that year Bahar was alone and not with Bechukosai?
I guess so. Yes.
Wasn't that the Metzius of the Orzerua's case where somebody just happened to miss one?
No, I'm sorry. 1 second. Bahar and Bechukosai were together, so that's what he's saying. That you can't. If you're going to make up Bahar and Bechukosai, you're going to have 3 parshas.
That's the example he gave
What?
with Emor and Bahar and Bechukosai. He said you could do Emor and Bahar. So I guess that year, that example did not have Bechukosai.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yes, you're right. Because then otherwise it would
have had 3.
Have a riot from the Orzerua that you could do 3.
Right.
He says the Gomatzin Mishum Duchtke Shekar and Gimel Siju Chad Shabbos. We never find you read 3 parshas in one Shabbos. So therefore, he says that for a practical reason, he doesn't think you can do 3 parshas. But OJ Shkweya. So in other words, you can only make up if it's a week before, and you can only make up if it's only 1 parsha. But you can't make up if it's 2 weeks before, because then you're gonna have to make up 2 parshas. In other words, if you miss 2 weeks in a row, and you can't make up parshas that are a double. He says, and there's another problem. Came into Pekude, obviously, in my Sefer, they didn't finish Pekude, and Pekude is in the end of Shmos. And Sfar Shabbos Echel Likros Sefer.
Wait a second. What happens if Vayakol Pikude comes out together with one of the Dalet Parshiyos? So now you have multiple Parshiyos that you're reading.
Yeah, well, I think we're
Not talking about
That's for the maftir.
That's different.
It's a different sefer, and it's for the maftir. I guess that's what you have to say. I mean, it's a good point, but that's what you have to say. So he says, so he said, you can't read, go from sefer to sefer. If you're going to read Pekudei, and then you're going to read Vayikra, you're going to be reading in two svarim. And when you combine parshas, this is what the Acharon speak out. You're supposed to connect the 2 parshas together. You give one person, like when you read Vayakol Pekudei, the person who has the 4th aliyah gets part of Vayakol and part of Pekudei, so they should be connected. And so he says, again, and I'm now going to change basis the Vukos as Chad Gavakari Sof Sidra Bishana with Chil Sidra Shania. We connect the 2 parshas together. Kadesh near Kilu Chasid, another should look like 1 parsha. Im Ken Ki Karan Acha Pekudei Bayikra as Yitzar Chlikros Chad Garfa Sof Pekudei Chil Yikra. So if you wanted to make up Pekudei, you'd have to read the 4th aliyah, would have to combine Pekudei with Vayikra. It's not right. It's not appropriate to connect two different books of the 5 books of Moses together.
So what if they were all in the same sefer?
No, he says if they were in the same sefer, he says 2 svaras. One svara is that you can't do more than 1 parsha. You can only make up 1 parsha because then you'll have a total of 2 parshas. You can't read more than 2 parshas of Shabbos. The second svar is that if it's a what do you call it? If it's a double, if it's the end of a sefer, even if it's only 1 parsha, even if they would read only Pekudei and not Vayakel, you still couldn't read Pekudei if you forgot it with Vayikra, because then you'd have to connect Pekudei from Shmos with Yikra and Vayikra. And we don't want to, it's not appropriate to connect the 2 things. And he says why.
Rabbi?
Yes?
Yeah, my son's Nets minion last Shabbos, which was Parshas Emor in Lakewood, which are the holiest Jews this side of the Mississippi. The Balkore got up and started from Vayakel Pekudei, read through everything through the first Aliyah in Emor, then stopped, and then continued on himself by being, called himself up or whatever for each Aliyah. But he read through from Vayakol Pekudei, that's Vayikra, Tzav, and so on, all the way through.
So, he did it with 1 Aliyah, right?
1 Aliyah, he took all the Aliyahs. The rule is because you have to have distancing.
Well,
so
but he didn't follow
the first. He made a bracha on Vayakol Pekudei and went all the way through.
All right.
The first Aliyah and Emor.
Okay, great. But he wasn't following the opinion of
Exactly.
the Rami Mintz. So we have to find
out. Lakewood, Paskin, that you can do it.
In my son's minion in
Trying
Lakewood.
to jump ahead to the end of this year. This is what we're talking about. What's the halacha? This is the Rami Mintz's position. We'll see. There are people disagree. What do you think?
Okay.
Disagree.
Continue.
V'chein ananogin the lachasim onem hakol v'koram chazak. V'tayim shos amina komer gemar mitzvah yehi ratzon shetiska lomar yoser mitzvahs. We say chazak v'nis chazak to show that you've completed the sefer and you deserve your shekayach. V'chein ein tzvar nachal l'kra also gabra toch achuma shesheni. So it's not appropriate. You're giving the person who's laning a yishkayach for finishing shmos, And then you're overshadowing it by starting Vayikra. You have to leave the focus on Shmos, and not mix Shmos with Vayikra. Everybody deserves their own attention. So therefore, for two reasons, he's opposed. So it comes out two qualifications of the position of the Or Zarua. Number one, you can't do more than one parsha, and number two, you can't go from one sefer to another. You can't go from Shmos to Vayikra. So that would mean that, in spite of what Yisrael, who was it? Zeb's minion?
Yeah, it was a Nets meeting. They were also, it was on the lawn with social
Okay,
distancing.
yeah, I'm sure they did it the right way. But in spite of what they did, according to Maram Mintz, we cannot make up any parshas because we have two strikes against us. Number one, we'd have to read about 10 parshas. And number two, it would be a problem of connecting Shemos and Vayikra. So now we need to know, is that the halacha? Do we pass like the Marami Mintz? So the Magen Avram and the Shulchan Aruch writes as follows. Magen Avram is one of the classical commentaries in Shulchan Aruch. He says, Bittul Shabbos, he's quoting, in Bittul Shabbos, Shabbos Echad, Kriyas the Parsha B'tzibur. The Ramah that says, if you miss one Parsha, you make it up the next week. So he says, he says, it's also not only if you forgot, it's also if you had a fight, like the case of the Arzaru, of the Maram Mintz. He's quoting the Maram Mintz. You can't read, see, here's the end, Maram Mintz. He says you can't read 3 parshas. So if it's mechubarim, you can't do it. And then he says, and also if you skipped Vayechi, you can't read from Bereshis and Shmos because it's the same problem that we just saw in the Marim. So you can't, in one aliyah, you can't combine 2 different svarim. So the Magen Avram quotes the Marim, and I saw Rav Asher Weiss says that if the Magen Avram quotes the Marim, that we would follow that halacha. Unlike Rabbi Zev Rifkin. We'll see in a minute how it works out, though. But
It wasn't him, it was his
Magen
minion.
Avram, you cannot make up the parshas that we missed. Now, the Magen Avram throws in here a little sneaky thing. I mean, it's not sneaky, but in the parentheses, Gos min hagim shachar shel Shabbos os mem aleph kosav ozev l'nir dvar beinai. In Hagos min hagim, in Hilchos Shabbos, Eis Mem Aleph, he says, I don't agree. I don't agree with either thing that the Maram Mintz says. So now we know there's somebody that disagrees with the Maram Mintz. I never heard of Hagos Minhagim. Apparently, it's somebody wrote a sefer called Minhagim, and then somebody else wrote Hagos on the sefer. So it took me about 45 minutes to find it. I looked at HebrewBooks.org and looked at other places. Here, I found it in the end. They for some reason, I was looking under Sefer Minhagim, and they had it under Minhagim. So this is the Sharblat of the Sefer, the front page. Sefer Minhagim was written by Rav Yitzchak Isaac Tirna, who was it says here he's in the time of the Trumas Hadeshin. He was also a late Rishon. He says he was in the Shnas Kuf Pei L'Elef Hashishi, which I figured out, if my math is correct, in 1420. And then he says, "V'nimsa b'soch hagos chasam ani Moshe Chazan," and written on the bottom of the sefer is Hagos, and the author says his name was Moshe Chazan, and he says he was also from Dar Sama. He also lived at the same time. So this is somebody that was a contemporary to Maram Mintz, because the Maram Mintz was also in the 1400s. So here's the Sefer HaMinhagim is on top, and on the bottom is the Hagos. And in the Hagos, he says, he quotes the Maram Mintz. It's almost very difficult to read, the Maram Mintz. And then he says at the end, I will go there in Dvaravena, but I don't agree. So we see already that there is dispute. There's machlokas here, whether we accept the 2 chumras or the 2 qualifications of Maram Mintz or not. What does the Mishnah Berurah tell us to do? So the Mishnah Berurah says, in Bittul Kama Shabbosos, if you miss more than one parsha, some say that you can't read the Parshas. That Vav goes to the Sharatzian, and the Sharatzian says Maramins. That's Maramins' position. You can't read more than one Parsha. And there are those that say that you should make it up. Who does he quote it from? He says, the El Yerabba. The El Yerabba said, disagrees with Maramins. Here's the El Yerabba. The El Yerabba, he quotes the Maramins, and he says, I will go there in Dvaravena. I don't agree with the Maramins. He disagrees actually on both positions of the Maramins. So that's what the Mishnah Berurah is quoting. The El Yerabba is very famous Halacha Sefer. So it's a machlokas. Whether, so we saw the Magen Avraham quoted the Maramins, and then he said that the Sefer Hagos Minhagim. Oh, he quotes the Mishnah Berurah also. He says, "Who adin?" He says, "Who adin?" Also, second issue is in if you have two books of the 5 books of Moses, you can't connect Shmos and Vayikra. Then he says, "Hagos Minhagim." The Hagos we just saw, I showed it to you, disagrees with the Maramins. So we're getting already the sides set up. On the one side, you have the Maramins and the Magen Avraham that has these 2 Chedushim. On the other side of the ledger, you have the El Yerabba and the Hagos Minhagim and the who else? We didn't see anybody else yet that disagree with the Maramins. We'll see there's more people that disagree. The Lom Sarach Hashlim Mashbot Mishavas Avar. He says, Magen Avraham agrees with the El Yerabba. And then he talks about that you can't read Vayechi and Shmos. So, and then the Bir Halacha throws in here a very interesting thing, and he says, this machlok is whether you can read more than one parsha. From the Gra, it appears that you cannot read. The Gra seems to agree with the Maramins. We have here machlokas. The Maramins says you can't read more than one parsha. The El Yerabba says, and this Hagos Minhagim says you could. So, but the Gra seems to agree with the Maramins. How do we know? He says because the Gra says here on the. To go back a page, the Gra says, and when the Shulchan Aruch says that if you miss the parsha, you can make it up. The Gra says, "Kamosha kasu b'tfila tavo hispalo." The Gra is very cryptic, but the Gra is saying, where did you find such a thing that you can make up things that you missed? Who says you can make up something you missed? It's last week's parsha. How can you make it up? So the Gra says, you know why you can make it up? Because there's a concept of tashlumin. If you missed Shemona Esrei, you could make up Shemona Esrei the next week. And now I'm saying not the next week. The next Shemona Esrei. Achris, you can make up Mincha by davening twice. If you miss Mincha, you can daven Marv twice. If you miss Marv, you can daven.
But you can only do one.
Yeah, but you can't daven.
You can only do one.
You can't daven 2 or 3 tefillas if you miss.
That is true, and now you can't do 2 or 3. You're right. You can't go back more than one. So that's precisely why the Mishnah Berurah says that from the Gra, it's mashma.
Can't do it.
2 parshas. He explains it on the bottom here in the footnotes that he says the Gra says he says what he says up here. He says umibir Gra mashma like day rishona that you can't do more than one parsha. So he explains how he knows that. What does that say? Because he compares it to making up a mistfila. And Shulchan Aruch says you can't make up more than one tefillah. According to the Gra, the Mishnah Berurah also says, what'll be if you forgot it b'mezid? Let's say it wasn't accidental. You were pasheya. You were negligent and you didn't daven. So the Mishnah Berurah says here in the Bir Halacha that the Ateres Sekanim is Mesupik. What about be if it's b'mezid? And he says that the Gra, according to the Gra, Gra, it comes out that b'mezid you can't make it up because there's no tashum in b'mezid. If you were negligent and you missed chakras You're laying in bed and you said, I don't have to rush. And then after you feel guilty, you can't daven mincha two times because you
But
didn't.
why should davening and laning be the same thing? You have to daven every day or whatever. Certain people don't have to daven; they're still learning all the time. But you have to do Sefer Torah in order. You're messing up if you don't catch up.
So that's a very, very good question, and I was exactly what I was looking into today. It took me a long time to prepare this year. Sometimes you say Avizman about the Karbano, that if you missed it, you can't light Hanukkah candles on Pesach. You missed, and you can't even light it the day after Hanukkah. Avizman about the Karbano. On the other hand, by Tefillah, you say that you could make it up. So who says? Why would you compare that? It's a special takana. Chazal said that by tefillah you can make it up. Who said that you can make it up in other areas? Who says you can make up a laning? So, but there are other examples where you can make things up. You could make up Havdalah. If you didn't make Havdalah Matzah Shabbos, you can make it up in the daytime. If you didn't say Kriya Shema, there's some that say that you could make it up. So there's other examples of things that you can make up. So it seems to me the Chazal allowed you to make things up. The Maram Shik says that what it depends on is you can only make things up if there's a connection to that item. If you daven in the morning, there's a mitzvah to daven all day, so you could say that by mincha time you're still connected to the shachris. There's a mitzvah kabbalah sol mal shemayim the whole day, so therefore you can make up the kriya shema that you missed in the morning. So the Gra apparently holds that since the laning is one long continuum, so therefore it makes sense that you could make it up.
By Kriyas Torah, there's something different. I think that if I'm not mistaken, halacha is that you have to be Shnai Mikra V'Echad Targum every Shabbos.
Yes.
Right? But
yes.
if you miss, you have until Yom Kippur to go back and to correct your error. So it could be. I mean, as and this will answer, what Josh mentioned the Gemara in the Megillah about the reading before the Klalos. But Ezra's takana was to read the Torah, go through the entire Torah every year. Okay.
But
the problem that doesn't mean that you have.
What you're missing is that the Gemara and Brachas on Daf Ches.
Let's hear what Izzy wants to say, and then you could disagree with him.
Because it could very well be that this time I'll wrap it up.
You're too fast.
One second. Hold it a second.
Yeah.
It could be that the takana of Ezra was that the Torah has to be read through each year, especially if it's a chiyuv on the Gavra. Then it's up to me to make up the kriya during the year. This thing that that you have to have brachas and before Rosh Hashanah and before Shavuos. That could be that lechatchila Ezra set it up in a certain way.
That was the time.
But the bottom line is that you have to go through the whole Torah every year, just like
So here you're making an excellent point. Here's what if I could
That's one problem.
Yeah, what's the problem?
The Gemara in Brachas and Daf Chesam Beis says that Rav Abba Savar, he wanted to do that to make up all the Parshiyos on Erev Yom Kippur, and they told him not to do it. You have to do it every Shabbos or Shabbat.
Yeah, but we hold the halacha you could make it up.
But Josh, that case was different. He specifically waited to Erev Yom Kippur.
Correct. But even more so, there's a debate in the Rishonim. It's brought down by the Rosh and several of the others as well there that discuss it. And they say, they even quote the Or Zarua, that if Shnai Mikra V'Echad Targum only works up until a certain point. You can't do it forever, either until Shabbos or possibly until the following Wednesday, but it's not open-ended. And the thing that occurred to me, which I didn't want to...
You could make it up past Shabbos.
Well, they say...
Basically,
okay, but listen, I got to finish. Let me just cut in. When you're saying Yisrael, you don't have to come out to Shnai Mikra V'Echad Targum. What you're saying is that there was a takana that they should read the whole Torah during the year. So therefore, if you missed the parsha, you got to read it because that was the takana that you should read through the whole Torah. So the truth is that the Gra says it's tashlumim. Tashlumim, it means that really there's no chiyuv to read the parsha, but there's a makeup. That's what tashlumim means. But the other way to understand this halacha that you can make up a parsha is not that it's a tashlumin, and there's a mitzvah to read the whole Torah during the year. And the Or Zarua says it's not linked to any particular Shabbos. It's just, it so happens that you go in order. So if you go in order, it turns out this Shabbos we're going to read Parshas Bamidbar. So there's two different ways to understand this halacha that the Shulchan Aruch says that you can make up a parsha. The Or Zarua is very clear that he's not saying what the Gra says. The Gra is not explaining the Or Zarua. The Gra is saying his own svar. The Or Zarua is saying that it's one long chiyuv to learn all the parshas, and therefore, if you missed it, you have to read it. According to the Or Zarua, I would say even if you missed the B'mezid, you could still make it up. And even if it was your son in Lakewood, they made it up according to the Or Zarua svara. That the Or Zarua says that it's one long obligation, so it doesn't matter that there's no tashlumim after a week. But if you hold like the Vilna Gaon, then it's tashlumim. So then there's rules in tashlumim. Tashlumim has to be within a week and only one time. Okay, I gotta go a little bit quickly. If you have more comments that are terrific, please let's wait till after the shir, and then you'll tell it to me. Whoever wants to stay and listen to the comments. The Aruch HaShulchan paskins like the paskins like the Eliyah Rabbah. I'm not going to read it to you inside. The Aruch HaShulchan, the Mishnah Berurah, it's not clear which way the Mishnah Berurah is sliding. He brings both days. It doesn't seem to make a clear decision on this battle between the two sides, whether you could make up two parshas and whether you can make up from Shmos to Vayikra. But the Aruch HaShulchan sides with the Eliyah Rabbah. They both say that you could make it up. The Maram Shik, who was a famous Polish posek, says, "Shamati mimorish Agon Achasiv Ara the Uvda Renasan Adler Asa Halacha Maisu Karol Hashim Harvey Sidrus." Renasan Adler, who was the Rebbe of who? The Rebbe of the Chassam Sofer, and he was very famous. Renasan Adler, he was a Kohen. Renasan Adler, he made up Parshiyos. So you have there a stream of people, and then the Shara, which is a classic sefer on Kriyas Torah. We should get it for our library in OT. We don't have it, but I have it at home. The Shara Ephraim says that he quotes the opinion of Merami Mins that you don't have to make up more than if it's mechubarim. You don't read it, and also if it's more than one parsha, you shouldn't do it. But then he says, if you want to do it, he makes a pshara. If you want to do it, you could do it. You don't have to do it, but if you want to do it, you could do it. So that's basically the range of opinions. There's the Maram Mintz, and those on his side, maybe the Vilna Gaon and the Magen Avram, that say you don't have to make it up. On the other side, you have the Aruch HaShulchan and the Eliyah Rabbah and the Hagos Minhagim that say that you could make it up. They disagree with the Maram Mintz.
Maram Mintz doesn't say that you don't have to. He says you really shouldn't.
Well, the question is, if you do it, I mean, you're not doing. If you're, well, it depends, right? If you shouldn't make it up, then you're not allowed to make it. You can't get an aliyah on a kriya that you're not mechuyev to. 100%.
No, it might be a difference between what's the chiyuv of Torah? Is it on the gavra, on the chefsa, or on the tzibur? If the chibur is on the yachid, then you have to make it up.
Too hard to give a share over Zoom. Too many people steal my thunder.
Okay, so all on Zoom. Go ahead.
Look what it says in the Shara Ephraim. It says here. You see, it says Rabbi Dr. Israel Rifkin says. Kvar b'yarnu b'sif test shem bitul atzibur akriya ba'ones yisham l'shana haba the lo bitul onus. If it wasn't an onus, if it was an onus, then you make it up next week. But let's say it wasn't an onus. Rak shelo hayasham asar b'shabazeh. You didn't have 10 people. Ein sar hashim b'shabaz haba. Then there's no chiyuv to mashim because since you didn't have 10 people, there was no chiyuv. If you only make things up when there's a chiyuv. If there's a chiyuv, then the chiyuv of Kriyas Torah is on the tzibur, like Yisrael is saying. So if it's a chiyuv on the tzibur, if there was no tzibur, this halacha, the Shulchan Aruch, the make up a missed parsha, only applies when you have it tzibur. So now I had the following shaila. In Highland Park in Edison, we have probably 1,000 Jews, Jewish families. So we got plenty of people to make up a tzibur. But on the other hand, none of them could get to shul because they were closed. Even the government closed the shuls. So is it comparable to the case where you have a tzibur and they miss the onus, and then you could make up the kriya, or is it comparable to the case where there's no tzibur and you could not make up the kriya? So I saw the Achronim assume that if you can't get together, for example, they talk about if there was a hurricane or things like that, if you can't get together, then according to the Shar Ephraim, that says that if there's no tzibur, there's no chiyuv, so then you would not be able to make it up. So now, does everybody agree to this chiddush of the Shar Ephraim, that if there's no tzibur, you don't have to make it up? So the Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, who many of us knew, says that what happens if you miss, this happens all the time. You go to Eretz Yisrael and you miss the parsha because they're ahead of you, or the other way, the people from Eretz Yisrael come and they miss the parsha. So he says that B'nei Chutzor Tabam Eretz Yisrael b'Shem Shen Kriyas a parsha Shoveh. If you come from Chutzor Eretz Yisrael and the parsha is not the same, Umafsidim Shemiya parsha, they lose one parsha. Ein tzrichim lahashlim Mishal parsha Chizro. They don't have to make up the parsha. The Kriya Satara Avichavas at Tzibur. It's a chiyuv on the Tzibur. So therefore they don't have to make it up. There was never a chiyuv. So Shlomo Zalman concurs with the Shar Ephraim. On the other hand, and the Abiyah Omer says the same thing. I can read to you inside. He says the same thing, that if you travel from America to Israel, you don't have to make up the parsha because he creates a parsha, and it's not mutal sal yachid, and therefore if there was no tzibur, there's no chiyuv to make it up. On the other hand, the Betzel HaChachma, who's that's the Betzal Klein. He was the brother of the Debbetziner Rav. The Betzal Klein was in Antwerp, I think, and the Debbetziner Rav was in Brooklyn. So he has a fantastic sefer. We have it in the library, actually in the office because we ran out of space. So he says that he says a brilliant svara. If anybody wants the Mar Mekalmos, I'll send it to you. In this paragraph, he says first he says he brings a lot of svarim. They tell stories where it's clear that they didn't hold like the Shar Ephraim. For example, he says, maybe Prague. Because of the heavy rains in Prague, they didn't have minyanim. And nonetheless, the Yud said they should make up the parsha the next week. Even though they couldn't come to shul, there was no minyan. So you see, not like the Shar Ephraim. Even if there's no minyan, you have to make up in these paragraphs here. He has more Marmakovs, but he says a brilliant svara. He says if you say that it's a din of tashlumim, so then tashlumim like the gra, so then tashlumim requires there was a chiyuv. If there was no minyan, there was no chiyuv. So it can't be. There's no din of tashlumim if there's no minyan. But on the other hand, if you say that the pshat in this halacha is the way it's mashur from the reading of the Or Zarua, that the Or Zarua says that Chazal or Masaka, and then you have to read the whole Torah from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So then, what does it matter that there was no minyan that particular Shabbos, but it's a chiyuv on everybody to finish the Torah from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So maybe you'll say, well, but it can't be a chiyuv on everybody because there was no tzibur the previous Shabbos. So he says, it's mamish brilliant. He says, the chiyuv to finish it the whole year doesn't start on that Shabbos. If you miss Parshas V'Yaakov Pekudei, the chiyuv to read V'Yaakov Pekudei doesn't start in V'Yaakov Pekudei. It starts at the beginning, parts when you start reading Parshas Bereishis. You're mechuyev to read all Chamisha Chumshei Torah during the year. And then you were together. Maybe if you were on a desert island and you weren't with the tzibur at all, maybe you wouldn't have a chiyuv. but you were together with the tzibur. You missed one parsha. There was no tzibur. So it doesn't matter. There's no tzibur. The chiyuv didn't start on that, especially since the whole lumdus of the Orzerua is that parshas are not linked to a date. They're just a continuum of parshas. It's nothing to do with the date. So the chiyuv to read all the parshas starts at the beginning of the year. So just to summarize, oh, and I have to tell you one more thing. All right, let's first summarize. There's 3 reasons why one should not do what Rabbi Zev Rifkin did in Lakewood, which was to read all the parshas. One reason, I'll tell you a 4th reason in a minute. One reason is because 2 of the reasons are from the Maram Mintz, that number 1, you don't make up more than one parsha. Number 2, and the Vilna Gaon seems all the way too. Number 2, you can't connect Shmos and Vayikra. And number 3, if there was no minyan, there's no chiyuv. So there's no chiyuv. There's no point of reading the parshas. Those are the 3 reasons not to make up the parshas. On the other hand, there are the Magen Avram and others disagree with the Mamarins, and the chiddush of the Shar Ephraim that if there's no minyan, there's no chiyuv. There's also machlokas. So you have the range of opinions. Now, the Chazon Ish is quoted as follows. The Chazon Ish says, "Ma'isa of Eikav machalosel shama mesh shtei shabbos kriyas Torah." The Chazon Ish missed kriyas Torah for 2 weeks because he was sick. Okay, because you'll find b'shav shlishis gam shtei sidus hakol mal shehechser. So he asked somebody to read the 2 parshas that he missed. It would see it's not clear. Did he do it as a chumrah, or did he do it because he held not like the Maramins? And then in the Sefer Ma'aser Rav, it says, "K'shiyotza ha'groim b'beis Yisurim karlo ba'al korei shikul fano kodal sidus midal shvuos asher yashav esaya." No, that goes next. When he was in jail, he wanted to hear those parshas. So now, according to Mishnah Berurah, is a stira. This is the Ma'aser Rav is the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon holds is Tashlumim. So how could the Vilna Gaon say that, how come he wanted to hear the parshas? You have to say that it was a chumrah. So Rabbi Schachter says that Rabbi Schachter has a tshuva, Herschel Schachter, and the way he paskins this shaila is he says that Mikar Adin we paskin like the Magen Avram. He calls the Shar Ephraim, and he says the Ramam Min says two svaras why you can't make a laning after a long time, and the Ikar Adin we paskin like the Magen Avram, that there's no chiyuv. But nonetheless, he says, and the Chainayim b'Sefer Perador, he assumes that the Gra and the Chazon Ish did it as a chumrah. So he says, a Ben Torah should be machmir and read all the parshas as a chumrah, because it's a big machlokes here. You saw it. It's a tremendous battle. So Mikra, then there's plenty of room. You have 3 svaras to be makel. 3 svaras. So you have 3 svaras to makel, and with a lot of support. So there's strong reason to say that you don't have to read the parshas. But nonetheless, you see the Chazon Ish and the Gra were machmir. So therefore, he says it's kedai for a Ben Torah to be machmir. Now, I would say that it's not so kedai because there's tremendous tirchut tzibura. Because to read, I don't know how long did it take them, Yisrael, to read all the parshas?
It was a long time. This was a Nets minion that got out after all the regular minyan.
Yeah, probably a few hours.
Okay.
So
Did the Chazon Ish insist that the entire tzibur read the parsha that he missed?
No, it doesn't. I don't know. We don't know. It doesn't say. It could be that he did. It could be that for the Chazon Ish, everybody was happy to do it. I don't know. It doesn't say.
This could have been a chumrah because when they didn't announce it in Zev's minyan, when they took the Torah out, they didn't announce that they were going, all the way through. The Balkorei got up, opened up the Torah, made a bracha, and started,
And how come nobody threw stones at him?
Because
how can you do it without announcing it? You have to announce it.
They weren't wearing gloves, and the stone could have been contaminated.
Not everybody has to. It's a big chumrah. It's an enormous terchut tzibura. Terchut tzibura. I once gave a shir. How long is terchut tzibura? 1 second, because the Shulchan Aruch said, the halach is that when you make a bracha in the Sefer Torah, you're supposed to leave the Sefer Torah open, because if you leave it closed, it's a tikkun tzibur to have to open the Sefer Torah after bracha. So you see 1 second.
Oh, wait a second. The Rav disagrees with that. The Rav holds that, Rabbi Soloveitchik, that when you make the bracha, you got to open up the Sefer Torah because you're making a bracha.
All right,
on
okay,
reading it.
but it's still a riot for tikkun tzibur.
Yeah,
In
that's
any
true.
event, in our shul, we're not going to, when we finally come back, we're not going to read all the Parshiyos. There's plenty to be Saimachan, not to have to read all the Parshiyos. If there's a group of people that want to be Machmer, I mean, and by the time we get back in, I don't know when, it's probably at least another 2 or 3 weeks. If they want to be Machmer, Tamalei and Bracha, but Meikar Din, they're not Mechuyev to be Machmer to read all the Parshiyos. So that's basically the. So I have a lot more to say about it, but that's. Oh, one last thing I have to tell you. Rabbi Shachter said, so how could you be machmir? Is he going to be making bracha v'atola? If you're gonna read the earlier parshas and you give aliyah to those people, so it's going to be bracha v'atola. So he says a very smart thing. He says Ravad Yosef, and there's many other achim say the same thing. It's if you missed last week's parsha, it's better to give the Kohen the whole parsha. No, Ephraim says if you missed last week's parsha, you should divide it in half. Do 3 aliyahs in last week's parsha and 3 aliyahs in this week's parsha. Others say that the primary parsha is this week, so it's not right to have people reading the parsha that's only Tashlumin. They should be reading the primary parsha. So it's better to have everybody, the Kohen, the first aliyah should read all of last week's parsha, and then he should read 1 aliyah without making a bracha yet in this week's parsha. So that's
what I did in Lakewood. Corey started from the beginning, went all the way through.
Probably saw Rabbi Shachter's tshuva. They did exactly what he said. So obviously they saw either they saw the tshuva, or brilliant people are machavin to the same thing. Okay, the shir is officially over. But comments.
This is
Shkoyach, Rabbi. Very interesting.
Don't relax, Rabbi.
If this is halach and tashlumin, what happens when you daven 2 shmoneses if you've skipped chakras and you have to daven 2 shmoneses to mincha? The first shmoneser is for mincha. The second one is tashlumin.
That's another brilliant question. I told you I have a lot of things to say. That's a tremendous kasha. If the Gra holds that it's a din of tashlumim, so then how come you don't read you should have to read the parsha in the reverse order.
Correct.
You should first read the primary parsha, and then you should read the tashlumim. That's a brilliant question. So other people thought of the same question that the hundreds of years ago, and what they say is because it's Torah Hashem Tamima, and you're supposed to read it in order. You're not supposed to read it out of order. So therefore, in order to maintain the order of the parsha, that's why you have to do it that way.
But what's
say a Kiddush, but now the show's over, I can take more time. I wanted to say that the Gra also agrees to the Or Zarua Svara that it's the main chiyuv is because it's one long continuation, but of parshas. But the Gra is saying that even if it's one long continuation, but certainly the primary parsha is the parsha of the Shavua, because you can't just pick out whatever parsha you want to read. Even according to the Or Zarua, that the takana was you should read the whole Torah from the beginning here at the end, but you can't pick out whatever parsha you want. So there's a certain element of connection to that parsha. So the Gra is saying though that even though that parsha is primary, but you can add on the other parsha as a tashlumim. But the question is, tashlumim is only where it has a connection. If there's no connection, you can't do tashlumim. So he said the tashlumim is the fact that it's one long chiyuv. But it still operates in the basis tashlumim. But since it's one long chiyuv, that's why it's better to say it in the order of the parshas.
But then once you say that, then who's to say that the Gra only would allow you to make up one more parsha? Like, I think that doesn't that sort of call into question the perception of the Mishnah Berurah that the Gra is siding with the
Maran Mintz.
Yeah.
And so what's your question?
But I mean, it's not. Sorry.
You mean if you add the parsha to look like you're not passing like the Gra?
No, the Gra is not saying as Rabbi Raps pointed out, the Gra is not saying that your tashlumin here is exactly the same as the tashlumin of tefillah. So in the same way that, as Rabbi Raps pointed out, you're not doing it in the same order. And in particular, if we say that you shouldn't do it in the same order because then you're not getting the continuity of the chumash. So then let's take it just one very small step further and say, yeah, and not only that, but if you missed 5 Parshiyos, you should make them all up. And that's all tashlumin.
Yeah, but we don't. Okay, so then the question is, to what extent is it the same as now? The Mishnah Berurah assumes that it has the same restrictions of tashlum. The fact that tashlumim you say the primary tefillah first is not a critical element of tashlumim. That it makes sense because the primary is primary and tashlumim is secondary. But if you do it in the reverse order, it would also work. So therefore, for the Parshiyos, we allow it to be done in the reverse order. But there's no concept of tashlumim if it's more than 1 week. That's what I think. That's the difference. Okay, so that's basically the story. Thank you very much for all your terrific comments and ha'aras. And that's the lay of the land here of the different.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Have a
Be
good
well.
evening. Bye.
Okay.
you.
Bye
Good night.
bye.
Good night. Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, you're welcome.
Bye-bye.
I just have to figure out how to close this thing.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
I wish I could see everybody in person. Okay.
Soon enough.
Soon. Mirz Hashem. Better safe. Okay. Okay, good night. Where do we close this?